On the first day of the Wandering Inn, Pirate Abba gave to me an obnoxious protagonist in a cozy. Yeah, so, first video here. We are about 5 chapters in so far, and I have a lot of thoughts pretty much right off the bat. I do get why this is well loved by a lot of people, because who hasn't, as a fantasy fan, thought about like, oh my gosh, it'd be so great to go into like a fantasy world and take over an inn and do that kind of thing. So immediately I kind of see that. It's set up, it's doing something that I've seen other of this type of like portal fantasy where somebody just is in another world where like other people are trying to, figure it out, and like there's a bit right at the beginning where the dragon's like, what happened here, and trying to figure out what's going on, and there's some other little things there where other creatures are trying to figure it out while our character Aaron is just traipsing around. However, Aaron is one of the most obnoxious characters I think I have read. I'm doing the audio for this, and the voice is also really annoying to me. The narrator's normal voice is fine, but the voice for this character I find really annoying as well, which makes sense because I find the character really annoying because, oh my gosh, I already knew that this was going to be doing like the stream of consciousness type thing where we're just this character, we're just in their head. And so I was prepared for that, and not really a big fan of that, but just also like, this is the most like dumb, helpless character I think I've ever read too. And I'm sure people will have some sort of explanation for it, but just like immediately with, okay, I get you're in a fantasy world. I'm not saying that I would do particularly well if I was just thrown in either, but in the end, at no point is, like, at least early on, not a lot of exploration happening to like see what's there. And so it's like she's already been there for days when she realizes there's like food there and stuff like that too, and trying to explore and like all of these things that are useful and that she needs, which I feel like probably I would have been trying to find some of that stuff first. But then the thing that got me more than anything was the like so dehydrated that she's delirious because she just didn't think about the fact that water is a basic human need, and has to also remember the stream that she had specifically passed and noted before. That was just like, really? Like, at first I'm thinking, like, are we just pretending that we didn't have the character already see a stream? But no, they did see that. And so I'm very much not a fan of this character at all. I do find them very annoying. And I could see some people finding like the sort of stream of consciousness and like the just, kind of dim, person just going, like, ah, la, 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 very ditzy character. But I don't know. The establishment of the character, I know they're into, like role-playing board games and like chess, but seem to have basically no logical, like, connections in their brain whatsoever, just flitting from one thing to the next. And so I have a feeling that's going to grate on me. It does seem, though, like even when we go to other POVs, because we've had some brief other POVs from the Littlest Goblin and the Dragon, it just seems like it's like you're also just doing the absolute stream of consciousness with those characters. And so I have a feeling that I'm going to only get increasingly annoyed by that as we go along, and every head we jump into, it's just this stream of consciousness. It also makes all the people seem sort of the same, I guess, which it's a very small sample size so far. But so I don't know how I feel about it. Like I said, kind of the idea, it's cute, person in this inn, and that's happening, but I'm not sure, like I said, how this is going to go. But we're gonna find out. I have a feeling, my prediction right now is that it's been established that the goblins just are always looking for foods. I have a feeling that it's going to be like the goblins are going to keep coming back to the inn, and eventually like she's going to offer them food, and then they're going to start like getting things that she needs instead of for their goblin chieftain or something like that. That's my prediction so far. But yeah, we're not a whole lot has happened at this point, but it's also been we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how far I get with the rest of the 12 days. And if I end up checking in, I'll be checking in sort of periodically. So I'll do a little bit more today here yet because this is the middle of the day, but we'll go from there. All right, so we're calling it a day at 9 chapters. I'm realizing too that even though 12 days feels like a long time to finish one audiobook, I don't think I'm going to end up actually finishing this in time, unless I end up having way more time than I think I'm going to. But I'm 9 chapters in. Still maintain a lot of the same things that I've been having. I do have to say, I totally love the fact, though, that she decides to make food for the first time, and instead of bread, goes for pasta. So yeah, I definitely support the pasta life. So that was fun. I'm not right about the goblins yet, but there is a comment right toward the end of where I'm at, where she's like, "Am I dumber than a goblin?" And like, yeah, I still this character. I feel like they would struggle to, like I don't know, should I make a paper bag reference? But it's just like so many things this character does, as they're just unbelievably dumb, and I'm still struggling with that a little bit, and like there was a after their little incursion with the guards who come to check out what's going on, and they pay her for the meal, and then she's kind of like, I gotta figure out what to do for more food. He's like, what are these coins? I can't eat these. Like, it never even occurs to this character that, hey, these people came from somewhere. Maybe I could, use these to, buy goods and services, like, in my world too. And I'm just like, I don't know. It's still, this character is very dumb. But it's been kind of fun. I feel like every single scene in this book is too long. And I'm kind of curious now. I like what an abridged Wandering Inn would look like. I feel like if this, I know how long this is. If this was like a, like 200, 300 page book, I feel like it could work. Or like, animated like web shorts or something like that too. But I'm still curious how this stretches as long as it does, because it already feels too long. But it's been an interesting time for sure still. On the second day of wandering in, Pirate Habit gave to me 2 info dumps. It actually was definitely more than 2. Info dumps have been pretty common here, but the thing is, like there was a really big info dump that sticks out where we were explaining all the different types of mages, and the thing is, it's all just like exactly what you would expect, like explaining what sorcerers versus witches versus whatever, all like, oh, so exactly what I would expect, like it's not anything different. Why did I need an info dump of something that's not even different than I would expect? It's definitely been a thing. I think that does contribute to the length here. And the other thing, I do have some good things too, I promise. But the other thing that is just still, I feel like really, again, extending this is the repetition. There is so much repetition, both with just things being repeated. Really early on, there was the dish rag, and then like there was a line where she's chewing the fruit, and it's like, and chewing, and chewing, and chewing, and it's just repetition there, but also just a lot of things repeated. And I don't know if it's because this was originally a web serial, and so it was like specifically trying to remind, but there's sometimes in scenes where just several times it will say the exact same thing over and over again. There were quite a few examples of this, but like one that I had a little bit more recently. I should say, I've just finished chapter 19, which, side note, is, and thus the Wandering Inn, the story of the Wandering Inn began. And I'm like, I'm 19 chapters in, I quite a few hours into this, and now the story begins. That's neither here nor there, though. But anyway, so like with chess, it was just mentioned just numerous times that the pieces looked different, but the rules were the same. And it was just like hit on again and again and again and again and again. I just feel like, again, a lot of that stuff could be edited out. I still think this could be abridged very easily and cut down to improve a bit. The other thing too is with all the chess scenes, it wasn't really surprising to have that. Chess has been mentioned a lot, but I struggle to believe that our character Erin is a like really high level chess player, because she's one of the dumbest characters I've ever read. And I feel like if you have the mindset for chess where you're always like thinking moves ahead, you would be able to have any form of logic or thinking, and she has displayed pretty regularly that she does not have in any way that sort of thinking to think about anything or have any logic. So I find that a little hard to believe. Overall, I feel like with it as well. But anyway, so let's talk about some things. So first of all, I will say, the thing I did like is there's an interlude where we see that the necromancers are doing a sort of summoning thing, and that's where the humans are coming from. And there's other humans all over this world that were pulled in from our world. So I like that there's an explanation.
I've come to understand that apparently the like isekai, if I'm saying that right, sort of portal fantasies when somebody like takes over a body in another world usually does not have any sort of explanation as to why. I like that we actually get an explanation like how this ended up because this is more sort of portal but different. So I like that we actually have an explanation and that this might come into a bigger thing where there's other people here. So that was a big plus because I just assumed we were never going to get any sort of explanation as to how Aaron actually got here, and that was just going to be ignored because I read some stuff like that, and I like that we actually got that. Um, the other things I do still I commented in the first clip that I feel like almost every scene is just too long, and that remains to be true. So an example scene I'll talk about is the scene where the necromancer Pisces is in the inn, and we have this whole thing where he's there, and then our guards show up, back up, and you know immediately, like it's very obvious, it's going to end her at her pot just like yelling like, hey, knock it off, stop it, get out. Like you know what's going to end there, but the scene goes on for quite a long time before we get there. So there are things like that where you clearly know where it's going to go or what's going to happen, but it takes a very long time to get there. And it's not that it's trying to trick you or hide or do something else different. It's just that it takes a really long time to get there, even though you know that that's what's going to happen. So it's just another thing. I've had a couple of other nitpicks. She keeps assuming that this is a medieval world, just for no reason, I guess, because I guess that's a trope when you go into a portal fantasy world that's medieval. But like in the city, she just keeps expecting it to be medieval and is confused when it's not. And it's just like there's been nothing to like make her think that. I guess that it specifically would be. And then there's just I feel like the character's kind of inconsistent as well. I mentioned that she's like the one of the dumbest people I've ever read, and yet is also like a chess genius. But then she will be incredibly bold sometimes, and then just incredibly mouse-like other times. And that seems to be a big thing that keeps happening as well, where it's just like at times she just so like when she goes into the city and the first person to try to call her over, she's like afraid to talk to them and do anything, and then like she's trying to go to another stand and tell them what she wants, but she just told a random person what she wanted, but then was scared of the next one, and it does kind of explain it away later. It's mentioned that because it was a knoll and she'd had a bad experience, that was kind of why, but I don't know. I feel like there have been some inconsistencies. Speaking of inconsistencies, I also feel like tonally we went a little bit different because we had a bit that was a bit darker, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like it when you're trying to do that, when you're doing like the very light, cozy, which is sort of how this is felt the entire time. Besides that, and then you suddenly go darker, it can feel very forced. I think it sort of worked, and it added a little bit of like, hey, this isn't just some la la fantasy land. It added a little bit of seriousness to it, which I think overall will probably serve the story well, but it did feel a little bit tonally inconsistent. Also, the random F bomb. Kind of felt out of nowhere with the rest of the story. So it's one of those things too where I'm like, I don't know that those totally fit with how it kind of went based on the feel of the rest of it. But it's overall, not the worst thing either. But those are I think those are the other things that I noted throughout the day here too. So I'm through the first 19 chapters and I still have so much of this left again. But I feel like I'm making progress. So that's day 2. We'll check back in on day 3. Also, I totally forgot to mention, but I was 100% right about her feeding the goblins as well. Although the way we got there was definitely a little bit different than I was expecting, but I was still right about it ending up there. On the 3rd day of wandering in, Pirate Abba gave to me 3 hours of chess. At least it kind of felt like that. There was a lot of chess in the chunks that I got to this time, and it's again where like, I don't know, there were some parts that were kind of cute. It's learning the ant people are learning chess, the goblins are learning chess, they're all interacting, but it just went on for quite a while, and I still don't really buy like the chess prodigy yet. No other original thinkings. But the other thing this stands out here specifically is we get a lot of Ryoka in the parts that I got to here today. And I'm through the first 28 chapters. I'm on 29 now. So multiple POVs there. And so I have to say, while I do find pretty much any other POV a little bit less annoying than Aaron, I've noticed with the POVs, I found Ryoka's her actual like plot line or lack thereof less interesting overall, but the character herself a little less annoying. But it kind of does the same babbling internal monologue, which has become a thing that I've just not been a fan of. And I noticed that a little bit before, but it's just where the character seems to be the same thing. And just kind of the same thing where it's like, oh, I'm this person from Earth. And like, the people from this world, they might be good at a thing, but I'm better. Which is the exact thing that we just got done doing with chess with Aaron. And so it's again, it does feel like things are a little repetitive here. Things go on quite a bit longer than they need to. And also, she also in this POV, there's a mention of it being a medieval world, despite again nothing about the world really seeming particularly medieval. And so it feels like again something the author's saying, even though it's not. But another a little thing there, and then her just not understanding either that like why the other people would be mad at her for outclassing them, and just like not being able to understand that at all because she's the best runner. And so I don't know, one of those things. We did get a glimpse of this other like evil king guy, so kind of interesting. But I just feel like again a lot of this, if this was much shorter, I think it could be quite a bit more engaging. The other thing I'll mention briefly here, and it was a little more heavily featured than I probably cared for, but I do actually like the fact that we very specifically deal with Erin, who the fact that she just forgets about the concept of having a period I found to be kind of eye rolly, but is thinking like, oh, that's one of those things that you rarely ever have to deal with in a fantasy world. It's just not something that gets talked about or brought up very much very often, and so it's like, how would you deal with that? And that was almost an entire chapter was focused on that, which again, I don't feel like that needed to be much like pretty much every scene in the book. I don't feel like it needed to be quite so long, but I have to give props to the author for including that because I do actually like the inclusion of just kind of normal everyday stuff like that, where you get bypassed that a lot. Like Kate Elliott in especially in her new Witch Roads duology, there's a lot of just the everyday kind of little things like that that you just normally get glossed over in books. So I do have to appreciate that, but still too long, repetitive. And the other thing before I forget, so I commented really early on that I find the voice for Aaron super annoying, that the narrator does, and in Ryoka's POV, she's talking about how obnoxious somebody's voice is, and guess what? Same exact voice the narrator does for Aaron. So I feel like even the narrator knows that the voice is annoying. But that's really all I think I have for today.
On the fourth day of wandering in, Pirate Hava gave to me 4 tired plot lines. Maybe not really 4, but I finished chapter 36. I just started chapter 37, and I do have to say, I've not cared too much for a lot of the plot lines. Everything is still, we're still going very slowly, but like the big thing, we've been focusing on the ants, a whole lot more chess and ants, and it's just the ants, learning to be individuals, and it's fine, but again, there's nothing new, different. We're doing a pretty familiar plot line where the hive mind worker bee thing has to realize that they're an individual, and so we have that. And the other plot line we've been focusing on is Ryoka, who also again just incredibly obvious with what's going to happen. I will say she does go a slightly different direction instead of having her actually make a deal with the rich lady, but there's just been all telling, no showing for every aspect of this quite long book, which I think is one of the reasons it's so long, because the author has to tell you everything. There's nothing left to like subtext or for the reader to just figure out. Everything is told to you. And so I mean, from the very first moment we met the rich lady, it's like it was very obvious that she was a bad guy and like all that kind of stuff, and it's just there's not really any there's not any mystery there. I do think Ryoka's whole reaction where she seems to think that her knowledge in her head would be enough to destroy this world, which really, come on. I mean, she's apparently has some specialized knowledge, even though she was like a freshman in college. And see, again, I don't totally buy that either. There's been, I feel like, several things here where things are brought up and it's as if it's just the author doesn't know or doesn't think anybody will bring up, and It is, though, it's funny because Aaron, who has no practical knowledge about anything whatsoever, and Ryoka, who seems to think that she has the most practical knowledge of all time. But it's just, yeah, there's been so much of the telling, never showing, and a lot more of the info dumps, too, which, definition of telling and not showing. But there's just the repetition, too, is the thing. Is again, I got through a really nice chunk, and I don't feel like a ton has really happened, but so much of the repetition. I'm like, I don't know how many times somebody has to tell Aaron that the necromancer is not referring to Pisces, because it's been said several times. People have explained that there was this whole necromancer thing, and we do this again, and it warps into a geography lesson where we learn about all the geography. We just happen to have Ryoka reading about the ant people to give us an info dump about the ant people, and it's just, again, especially when you're an obscenely long story already, and you're spending so much time info dumping and just telling, and then also doing kind of familiar plot lines. Still having, I still feel like the characters are fairly two-dimensional too. I don't feel like there's been a lot that's really made them feel. There have been flashes of, I guess, like, oh, we're establishing this character, this is why they are, but again, it's like everything is told to us. We never see this. We don't just get to see the characters changing. We're just told these things have happened, and so, yeah. Day 4, we're getting a little bit tired, but I'm making a lot of progress. So we'll see, and hopefully there'll be some improving. I'm not gonna hold my breath though. On the 5th day of wandering in, Pirate Habit gave to me a lack of subtlety. I mean, that happened on pretty much all of the other days, too. I feel like these clips have turned from some positives and some complaining to mostly complaining, but I mean, it's still kind of all the same things, so I won't re-hit the same things that I've already hit. But there's definitely some just like really transparent commentary and some other elements there, and I still feel like there's really not a lot of nuance or subtlety, and it all comes back to we're just being told about everything. There was a little bit of this with like humans coming to town, and everybody's like, oh, these darn humans coming into our city, committing crimes, taking our jobs, and very, very, very obvious and transparent what we're getting at, and I get it, but it's some of those things where we're just trying to put some of that kind of stuff where it feels like it's trying to insert stuff just to put it in and have more real world things in there, because I feel like we had that with Ryoka, where she was conflating things to like in an extreme way to our world. We continued with Ryoka of using her POV to info dump, because there was huge info dump, again, about like geography and stuff that we had there. I will say, I was personally offended mightily by Ryoka referring to Breaking Benjamin as heavy metal. That was a little bit upsetting. It also was weird because with all of the name dropping of like products and bands and shows and books, it felt like product placement. I know it wasn't product placement, but it did absolutely feel like product placement. But yeah, I'm like, it mentions a bell too, and I'm assuming like, oh, are we going Metallica? No, it's freaking Breaking Benjamin, which, come on, okay, I don't know. I know some people like Breaking Benjamin. I'm not a huge fan. But anyway. And then, yeah, so otherwise, I think I'm on chapter 47, I think. I've forgotten now, even though I literally just finished it like 5 minutes before filming this. But I'm to the part where Aaron gets a skeleton guard, which I kind of assumed was going to happen at some point. I'm sure will be kind of fun and have some hijinks happening around there too, with going with it. But we will have to see. And the Ryoka thing with the dragon, I don't know, that should be a little bit interesting. But it's, I don't know. Again, I feel like it's so much of the same. It's long. It's doing a lot of the same kind of things. It's still just a bit flat for me. I'm getting through though. I am over the halfway mark. It's crazy that I'm only over the halfway mark, but I think I actually am on pace that I will probably be able to finish this in the 12 days. Although I'll probably get way less audio time on the weekend, but we'll see. But that's it for today. On the 6th day of wandering, and Pirate Abbott gave to me a continued complete lack of consistency and recall from characters. This has been an issue, and I know I brought it up before too, but I just can't help but keep noticing it again and again. I was also totally wrong about where I was chapter wise before, because I'm just about done with 45 and doing this quick, because there's just been a couple of things where it's just like, again, I feel like just there's a complete lack of content or like continuity editing, because it's just more so content, I think, than like continuity, because there's not like there's any huge things, but there's just little things, two slightly bigger things. And so right now this is a Ryoka chapter, and I mean there's literally the line, she's eating meat and potatoes, and the line is that she's eating them, the meat has more gristle than she's used to, and then the very next line is, but she's used to rough fare or rougher fare or something. It's just like immediately saying like, oh, this is, she's used to stuff being better than this, but also then nope, she absolutely is used to rougher fare from camping, and it's just like immediately contradicting. And maybe it's like, oh, she's used to rough, maybe not this rough, but still it's just, it's clumsy and it's annoying. And then her getting into a bar fight with an adventurer, because we're still doing the Pursua crap, and then she's like, they're trying to talk her out of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't go back and break her arm, or she'll do something worse. And Ryoka says, what, worse than trying to have an adventurer beat me up? Yeah, I don't know, maybe like crippling you with a wagon and having that run over you. The thing she did before that was way, way worse. That was before the escalation. Like, have we completely forgotten about this? Apparently Ryoka has. And it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of this, it's the same stuff where we just kind of either ignore stuff, or sometimes even like the very next sentence have it. I commented before, there were lines where it's like, oh, I don't know what this does. And then the very next line of dialogue is, do you know what it does? And it's like, you literally just said you don't. So, again, I feel like a pass of like hard content editing to cut this down to like a tenth of the size, and just to take out the repetition, take out the things like that, would make this so much better. So that's what we have for day 6.
Didn't have a chance to film my day 7, so I'm doing it in the morning before I've started day 8, so it's all still fresh. But so on the 7th day of wandering in, Pirate Abba gave to me just no longer being able to suspend my disbelief. Hey, that actually kind of rhymed. The two main things here that have stood out from the bit that I got through is we're dealing with Aaron and Ryoka, our two main characters here, and both with just moments that don't feel earned, because the characters, I don't feel, have been established enough to make the reactions reasonable. And we kind of see a sort of a dual thing where they're both trying to see if they can end up using magic. Ryoka just wants to use magic to fix her iPhone, and Aaron just wants magic because it seems cool. But then Aaron just seems like super like depressed and mopey that she can't use magic. And I don't feel like there's been anything established that was some big dream of hers. It was more like, ooh, I wonder if I can learn magic. That would be cool. And to suddenly have just such a strong reaction, it doesn't feel realistic to me, because again, I don't feel like that's been established. But then the big thing with Ryoka is her just going all rage gremlin, attacking everybody, and just like trying to fight the Minotaur, the adventurers, and all of that kind of stuff. Which, my two problems there is, I don't feel like that's a response or a reaction that has been earned through like as making sense for the character based on the way the character's been established, because I don't feel like there's been enough done for that to make sense. But also, it's just the fact that Ryoka seems to be absolutely superhuman, and it's tried to be explained like, oh, it's just people from Earth are just better at everything than people here, even though they have skills and levels and armor. And I'm just like, it was completely not believable for even a second that she's having this fight just because she can do Muay Thai. Yeah, you're fighting people who are much stronger, wearing armor, and or are like magical creatures, and yet you're having that much success. Also, just don't buy it at all. Felt like the reaction was way too extreme for what's been established with the character, and I don't buy her just being Superwoman either by any means. So not a great update here, but we'll see how it goes from here. All right, it's day 8. I think we're gonna drop the whole song bits here, but Yeah, still more of the same. The big standout here was the scene where Pawn comes back and he's hurt and Aaron's all upset and everybody thinks that she's gonna go fight and there's this kind of like again kind of like a funny thing that everybody's waiting for her and she's not there but it just goes on for quite a long time. But then it's this singing and it just felt like the author couldn't write a good emotional moment. So just as like I'm just gonna have the character sing sappy songs and everybody just feels the music and I just found that to be really lame, to be perfectly honest. Didn't do it for me at all. And so yeah, that one was not for me. There were a couple like fun little moments, like the skeleton keeping people from getting into the kitchen because she was sleeping, and some little things like that. It's just like I feel like there are these little flashes of solid, but it's like it feels like this could have been like a web comic where like you have like a panel or two for every chapter. Maybe it's just there's so much that goes way too long and it's just not needed, doesn't really add anything, and so I continue to struggle with a lot of that kind of stuff that I'm just like "Ugh." But yeah, that's where we are for today. All right, so I gave up on the 12 days thing, I think around day 8, but I ended up actually finishing on day 10. And I'm filming this, it's been a few days since I finished now, and I figure I'm going to do a little bit more complaining, but we'll lighten it with some jokes first. So, this is described as a slice of life fantasy, but I think there's some confusion because this is like the whole cake, and it's like a 6-layer cake, not a slice. Also, I for a moment I was wondering if they originally wanted to title this "The Never-Ending Story" and then realized that was taken and so couldn't. Then of course there's is it the Wandering Inn or the Meandering Inn? That one's not that good, but anyway, I have finished. I feel like if I would have DNF'd this, I probably would have gone with 3 stars. I ended up doing my gut reaction was 2 stars. It could be 2.5. It could be argued. The thing here, a lot of this is still the same. I do get the appeal here. There's some parts that are cute and entertaining, but this is just the most egregious telling and not showing thing I've ever read. And this is just even, I know they only get longer from here, and this is just, again, egregiously long. This did not need to be anywhere near as long, maybe a tenth. It's just there's so many times I commented throughout. I felt like every single scene went on much longer than it needed to. There's nothing that ever happened that just felt like it did, and there were so many things that were brought up that I'm sure are going to come up later, but didn't really go anywhere. There were so many times where it's again you have so much length. I think a lot of it is because it's telling and not showing, and yet you still don't set up some things like with all of the characters. I'm sure people like them and feel for them and identify with them and whatever, but with all of the characters it always felt like we're just being told this is them, this is how they feel. There were times where very suddenly out of nowhere when we're like 30 hours into a book, when it's like, oh yeah, this is an aspect of this character that I didn't tell you about before, but it's definitely been there the whole time and things like that. And it just feels like it was written kind of stream of consciousness with no sort of editing, where it's just like the author just kind of wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and then never went back and revised and cut or did anything. And it's just everything kind of happens that way. And the repetition is also killer to me because it's not even just repetitious language. It's sometimes in the same conversation in the same like paragraph there'll be repeated things, and I brought up some specific examples, but that just I found throughout. It would be somebody would say something and then somebody would repeat the same thing or like ask the question that was just answered, and it's just really basic stuff. And that's where ultimately I ended up dropping this to a 2 because I was very just ready for it to be over. And I kept my spirits up longer than I thought I would, to be honest, with this being so long. But it's just like this is, there were some fun things. I feel like this would be a really great webcomic, where it's like maybe it's even a long webcomic series, but it's just each major thing that happens could be told in a webcomic panel with the limitations that you have there. You just it didn't need to be this long. And it's okay if people like this too. I think for the people who just like things to be really, really long, they like something that's very, very easy, very easy to listen to, something they can just sort of, turn their brain off and just go and enjoy and do other things with. This is probably the ultimate that. This is like, if you're the person who just wants some background background noise, something you can kind of listen to, that's still going to have some moments that you really enjoy. It makes sense, and that I think works for this, but it's not very good in overall. And I know that's all subjective, but there's just so many objective flaws here in this that I really couldn't bring myself to go anything above 2 stars, even though this is definitely, I feel like in some ways, like the enjoyable parts are more enjoyable than things I might have rated 2 stars, but there's so many problems I had with this ultimately. And while there were some fun parts, it's just all of the things I had issues with compounded over time, and it just kept going and going and going, and just it's kind of ultimately where I ended up. So wandering and not for me. I definitely will not be continuing. I could not have less desire to continue with this just extremely long series. I think honestly, if you abridged this, made it really short, or like I said, did a webcomic version, sure, I might check that out, because I think there's enough fun ideas here, and there are some things that I liked. Like I said, it's just did not ever need to be even a fraction of the length that it is. And so yeah, a lot of similar thoughts, but that's where I ended up. This has still been an interesting journey. Hopefully you enjoyed the journey, or maybe just seeing me painfully go through the last bit. But it's yeah, it's done, and we've finished with the 12 days of the Wandering Inn. I did make it though, so I feel like that is an accomplishment all itself. That I actually made it through, and actually did it in 10 days. Partially because I was just kind of pushing to try to be done with it. But, neither here nor there. So there you have it. Let me know your thoughts. I know there's a lot of fans of this who are going to disagree with all the stuff that I said, probably, or there's probably the people who are like, yeah, I can acknowledge that, but I like it anyway, and that's fine. Like I said, I do see the appeal of some of this stuff. It's just, for me, this is so many of the things that I do have problems with, and so it didn't ultimately work for me. I didn't necessarily expect this to either, so it's not like a huge surprise, but I went in hoping that I would find some things to enjoy, and I did find some things I enjoyed in it, so it's not like it was all bad by any means. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. Would love to hear from you. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizard of the Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.